Okay, let's talk about some Chinese dynasties of the post-classical periods. We're going to do a lot with Chinese dynasties in class, so let's just jump right into that. Some commonalities between these empires or dynasties is that they combine traditional sources of power with new methods of rule. And an example of this would be that the Tang dynasty kept a patriarchal society, but they created a new census method for tax rates. So they're combining traditional and new. After the fall of the Han dynasty, regional rulers emerged in China, and the next family to reunite much of China was the Sui dynasty. And they were followed immediately by the economic golden ages of the Tang and the Song dynasties. Throughout history, China's governments combined traditional sources of power, like I said, with new methods of rule. And the Sui dynasty did not last long. It was just from 581 to 618, but its emperor's policies lasted for a long time, had a great effect. They used Buddhism and Confucian civil service system to establish legitimacy with their population as well as themselves. They started the Grand Canal Project, and they even revived the Great Wall Project. They reinstated the Confucian examination system for civil service, and Buddhism increased in popularity during this period, but they were overthrown pretty quickly by rebellions. But they had laid an important foundation for future dynasties. I'm sorry for the awkward pause. The Tang dynasty that followed was more focused on scholars than on soldiers. It did, however, expand its territory beyond China proper to Tibet and Korea. They completed the Grand Canal Project. They offered support to Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. They kept their capital in Chang'an, and it was a major political center. Foreign diplomats visited from the Byzantine and the Arab worlds during their rule. They represented the golden age of the influence of Chinese culture, economic power, and scientific achievement on the world. Confucian beliefs were further incorporated into Chinese government through the examination system. Changes from the Sui dynasty to the Tang dynasty included the official government rejection of Buddhism and the restoration of Confucianism. They also created an even more complex government bureaucracy, adding more people to government payroll. They established military garrisons even on the far reaches of their empire to protect the Silk Roads and trade. It was similar in size and shape to the Han Empire. They covered most of modern China. They expanded the size of their empire in much the same way the other societies had, which is military power, diplomacy, and trade. They also raised taxes to pay for their operations. They conducted a census to count the people and to find out where they lived, and then the government imposed small taxes on cloth and grain. By the mid-8th century, the census counted about 50 million people, and this was the highest population of any civilization in the world of that time. Also, in the early 21st century, China still has the most people, over 1.3 billion. Tang art, especially ceramics, were among the world's most beautiful. Their glazed porcelain horses and other figures were delicate, colorful, and in great demand along the Silk Roads. Tang technology included printing, gunpowder, medicine, the compass, and ship construction. All of these were far ahead of the rest of the world. The Song dynasty followed the Tang, which collapsed after the floods. Famine, pirates, and bandits created great chaos in the empire. Transition from one dynasty to the next was fairly stable because of the people's faith in the mandate of heaven. Remember, the mandate of heaven is the belief that heaven would support an emperor as long as he ruled well. So Chinese people believed that if calamity struck and a dynasty fell, the Chinese knew that a new and better dynasty was on the way. So they continued a lot of things from the Tang dynasty, like the export of manufactured goods along the Silk Roads, continued development of urban centers, and the Confucian examination system. But they did develop Neo-Confucianism, and this was the adaptation of the traditional orderly and patriarchal rules of the originator with influence from Buddhism and Taoism. What I mean by that is that Confucius had set up a philosophy of societal order, not religion. His philosophy changed into a popular salvationist faith beginning in the Song dynasty, and this was called Neo-Confucianism. It became a religion of promising eternal reward, and this is another example of cultural blending, which often occurs in major religions. The civil service exam retained great prominence during this period. It successfully checked power of the landed aristocracy and developed alongside a powerful moral elite. Upward mobility did exist, but it took place very rarely. The song de-emphasized military approach to security and instead established the tribute system with its neighbors. Rice production doubled due to the fast ripening rice from the Champa. Internal trade from the Yellow Sea and Grand Canal flourished due to the increased number of merchants and the growth in population. The capital of Kaifeng became a manufacturing center. They produced things like cannons, movable types, water-powered mills, looms, and high-quality porcelain. They had more per capita production than any country in the world. They also had copper coins that they used as cash, and they had flying money. Their capital was at Hangzhou, and commerce soared there. They had magnetic compasses, cotton sails. They had a powerful navy. They were very much, they had definitely had an economic revolution. However, during the Song dynasty, women were entitled to keep their dowries and had access to new jobs like merchants, but they were also subject to the practice of foot binding. This practice originated with the aristocracy, and this copied the emperor's concubines or Turkish dancers at court, and it was viewed as a sign of wealth and status. Girls as young as 6 or 7 had their feet bound to create lily-like feet in order to secure a better marriage. The result was an increase in the restriction of freedom of women. And basically what they would do, they would fold in half their feet, bones were broken, and then they were wrapped with binding to create a small foot that was thought to be very attractive. It made it very difficult for women to walk. They were expected to remain at home and be little more than the property of their fathers or their husbands. So here's a map of the Song dynasty right here. Here's the Sui dynasty, and then you have the Tang dynasty. So that's it. Thanks, guys.